Hello, I'm Ryan, and welcome to my channel, Analyze This Mr. Bond. We're only a few days away from James Bond Day. James Bond Day, if you don't know, is the anniversary of the premiere of the James Bond film Dr. No. So it's a celebration of the James Bond film franchise and the James Bond phenomenon in general. For an account like mine, it provides an opportunity to be thoughtful and retrospective about the year that's passed, what we've seen change in the state of the James Bond franchise. And certainly we've seen a lot change this year. It's been a year of great whiplash. As news breaks, I always try to give you my honest and direct opinions. And if you look back over my videos from the past year, you'll see highs and lows. I've changed my feelings a lot as the news has continued to break. Amazon MGM acquired the Bond film franchise, effectively closing the door on the film franchise that we had known before. We have now concluded the Eon Productions era of James Bond films and begun a new era. And Amazon MGM hired new producers, David Heyman and Amy Pascal, to shepherd this new series. They've brought on board acclaimed filmmaker Denis Villeneuve to shepherd this new era of Bond. He's working with writer Stephen Knight, the writer of Peaky Blinders, among other things, to shepherd a new vision for Bond that is respectful of what's come before, but establishes the character once again so that the series can continue. And we're currently anticipating that film's release. Reports say that it's a ways away, that Amazon MGM is targeting a November 2028 release. That's unofficially confirmed as of this video. Perhaps by the time James Bond Day rolls around, we'll actually have gotten confirmation of that targeted release date. But 2028 is what we have to go on right now, and that's a pretty far ways off. Director Denis Villeneuve has to complete filming Dune Part 3, which he's currently working on, before he can really shift his focus and creative energies into the next Bond film. So we're at this moment of anticipation. There are things that are coming along the way. We have the 007 First Light video game just around the corner. That promotional campaign has really ramped up, and it's certainly caught the Bond community's attention. Everybody seems to be talking about it. Everybody seems to be generally favorable towards 007 First Light. Nevertheless, there's still this feeling of anxiety about having to wait so long between Bond movies, and it certainly will have been a very long wait since No Time to Die when the next Bond film premieres. So I wanted to take your pulse before I gave my exact feelings about the state of affairs for the Bond franchise, and I put out a poll on Instagram. A little over half of you said you were very pleased with the state of things. Another 30% or so said they were uncertain, and then about 13 to 15% of you weighed in saying that you were not happy with the direction of the Bond franchise at this time. Overall, I would say those are pretty positive numbers. We don't know a lot about the state of Bond 26, so in this period of uncertainty, that speaks to a general level of enthusiasm. And honestly, I've become increasingly enthusiastic, increasingly comfortable about the direction of the Bond series and the shape that the new Bond film, Bond 26, is taking. That wasn't always the case. One of my more watched videos this year is about how I was concerned about Bond 26. The announcement of Denis Villeneuve as the director was not something I was particularly immediately enthusiastic about. But once Stephen Knight was announced, my feelings began to shift, and I'm beginning to feel a lot more secure and positive about the direction of Bond under Amazon's leadership. Many of you are so frustrated with the amount of time it has taken to get a new Bond film rolling, but I actually think one of the most encouraging things that we've gotten from Amazon MGM thus far is that they're being very patient with Bond 26. One of my fears when Amazon MGM acquired the rights to Bond was that they would rush out a half-baked film just to capitalize on the property. There were rumors that Amazon desperately wanted to churn out a bunch of TV spin-offs, that they were pushing to aggressively get a new Bond film out the door. Maybe that was true. There have been leadership shakeups at Amazon MGM as part of this transition between Eon Productions and Amazon. But as of right now, Amazon seems very content to let Bond take the time it needs to take to develop properly. They've hired a well-regarded director, they've hired a well-regarded writer, and they seem to be willing to just give them the space to let them work and come up with a story for this new Bond film. The reports are also that, contrary to some rumors, the production is looking for an unknown actor to be cast as James Bond, a relatively young up-and-comer. That's a change in pace from some of the names that had been floating around. Jacob Elordi, Tom Holland, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Henry Cavill. In the past, film studios have sometimes tried to flex their muscle and get stars to be cast as James Bond. Some of you may have been around during the time when MGM was pushing Eon Productions to cast Mel Gibson as James Bond. So it's not unreasonable to expect that Amazon might want some star power to boost the Bond franchise's cachet. However, Amazon MGM seems comfortable deferring to Denis Villeneuve to cast an up-and-comer, to let the Bond property essentially establish itself. Let the Bond brand be the draw. Let this new actor come in without a lot of baggage and just become the character for a new generation. All of this speaks to a tremendous amount of confidence on Amazon MGM's part to let the creative team do what they need to do and just come out with a strong product. And I have a feeling that Bond 26 is going to be the first film in a while that doesn't feel like it was just a collection of episodes that had been scrawled on a napkin and kind of kludged together. And that's exciting. It's also exciting that the creative team, as established to date, is also dynamic. There are different sensibilities in play. Denis Villeneuve is not a dialogue-driven filmmaker. He's even said as much. He is a filmmaker who focuses on imagery. His films have been a little bit austere, but he's been paired with a writer, Stephen Knight, who is very dialogue-focused in his approach to writing and his approach to drama. These feel like creatives that are going to really balance each other and push each other into new directions. That's an interesting marriage. It's always exciting to see creative personnel work together who have very different sensibilities, because that means the end result tends to reflect a sensibility that is a combination of the two. And that's promising for Bond 26. Stephen Knight has, in some of his works to date, explored a more pulpy, let's say, Bond-friendly sensibility, and Denis Villeneuve needs no introduction. He is one of the most acclaimed directors working today. He works on a grandiose scale. If nothing else, Bond 26 is going to be a film rich in grand images. So if the director can bring his own grand aesthetic and the writer can make sure that there's a strong story with strong characters, strong banter, we're likely going to be in a strong place for Bond 26. At the very least, I anticipate that this will be a solid GoldenEye moment where we get a film that is relatively well assembled and good enough to reestablish the character and get us all excited for what's to come in future chapters. That's really my hope for Bond 26, and I think it's going to deliver at least that much. If it exceeds that bar, fantastic, but I'm not expecting for it to do more than that. And along the way, we're getting a brand new 007 video game, 007 First Light, that looks like, in its own way, a James Bond movie experience. It looks like the perfect appetizer for what the films will eventually cook up in a few years following its release. The only thing missing from the Bond horizon right now that I'm hoping will be announced soon is a brand new James Bond continuation novel focused on the character of James Bond. We've gotten a lot of spin-off novels, such as the Raymond Benson novel about Felix Leiter, and that's all well and good, but really I'm looking for another pass at the iconic character in literary form. Anthony Horowitz did such a great job with his trilogy. I'm looking for somebody else to pick up the mantle and deliver another set of literary Bond adventures. I'm a book Bond guy, and I really enjoy the book Bond, and I'm really hoping that novel is going to be announced. But outside of that, I'm still feeling pretty good about the state of the Bond property. And that's not even taking into account all the exciting Bond community events that we've had this year, all the Bond fan gatherings that are picking up steam for the year ahead. There's so much in the works. I've almost reached the point of exhaustion going to so many different local Bond meetups over the summer. That's a really exciting place to be for this community, especially since we have a little bit of a ways to go before Bond 26 hits theaters. Thank you to all of you out there who are planning Bond events. That's not my skill set. I'm not really a great event coordinator, but I love attending Bond events, and it's great to see so many people pulling this community together, because this community is full of such wonderful people, and that's really what keeps me going. And when it seemed like Bond 26 was on indefinite hold, even I was trying to figure out what this channel would exactly be in lieu of having such a active community focused on an upcoming movie. But it seems like things are just headed in the right direction on all counts. Now, if you're not feeling this wave of positivity, this wave of enthusiasm, I understand. Your feelings are valid. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments. It doesn't always have to be a tidal wave of positivity, but as things stand, I think things are looking pretty good for Bond from my vantage point, and I look forward to what James Bond Day will have, both from the Bond community and potentially from Amazon MGM. I would love an official announcement. I'm not counting on it. I don't even know if Amazon MGM is really going to fully recognize James Bond Day. James Bond Day was very much an Eon Productions thing. It really started with the release of Skyfall, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not Amazon MGM is carrying the tradition forward. Hopefully so. Hopefully we just get a tidbit of news regarding Bond 26, if nothing else. But if we don't, I'm sure the flurry of posts on social media will be exciting enough. I look forward to seeing everything across Instagram. That space is always so vibrant, so lively with Bond content on a daily basis these days, that I'm sure it's just going to explode like a firework on James Bond Day. So thanks for bearing with my, let's call this my State of the Union assessment of the James Bond series. Let me know where you think I'm skewing a little bit too positive, where I might be ignoring some of the concerns. Some of you already have. You've reached out in DMs on Instagram, and we've had conversations there. I'm always happy to talk realistically about the state of the franchise. Let me know also if you share my enthusiasm. Are you feeling energetic about the state of Bond in 2025? And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.